Alrighty. Good morning or good afternoon, evening, whatever time of day it is for you. Hang tight for me just a second here. Welcome to a special live edition of Bird's Nest Podcast. My name is Joe Donahue. I am the host here of Bird's Nest Podcast. We're just going to take a few moments here on this Friday afternoon, we're taking a few moments really just to talk for one final time about the upcoming Super Bowl 57. Super Bowl 57 featuring the Eagles taking on the Kansas City Chiefs. We've spent the last 2 weeks talking about this game just as sports fans, just as Eagles fans, just as Super Bowl fans. We've spent the last 2 weeks talking about this. This is the biggest game of the year. For the first time in 5 years, the Eagles are back in the Super Bowl. So we wanted to take a moment here and just as sort of a final wrap-up for the week, as the Eagles get ready to conclude their final practice over in Arizona, just taking some time to just digest this game and do some final keys as well as offer some predictions. So at any point in time, please feel free to like, subscribe. This is really, really crucial. It helps the channel out. We are definitely a newer outlet here, but definitely doing what we can to try and keep this game, or to offer some additional context, offer some additional support, and just share that Eagles fandom works. So definitely feel free to like and subscribe because it will help us out. You can also check out birdsnestmedia.com for written content, which is definitely posted on a more regular basis. So, let's start with the first key to the game, which is going to be pressure. Getting pressure on Patrick Mahomes. That is the first and most important key to the game here, realistically, for the Eagles. Jonathan Gannon has been quoted as saying regularly that sacks do not matter to him. Sacks do not matter to him. And when you look at a quarterback like Patrick Mahomes, sacks really aren't going to do anything. You're not going to get a ton of sacks because what's going to happen is what's going to happen is Patrick Mahomes is going to get the ball thrown away. Now, the Eagles do rank very high when it comes to sacks per pass attempt. In the course of the regular season, they were number one in the league in this department. It was 12.59%. Every time that the quarterback threw a pass, a little bit less than 13 times out of 100 passes, quarterback would have gotten sacked. So it is big. I'm not denying that the Eagles do a really, really great job of getting the sacks, but with a quarterback like Patrick Mahomes, who just won MVP last night, it's going to be difficult to get the sacks because what's going to wind up happening is Mahomes is going to see that coming. He's been in the league long enough to know that if there's pressure coming, get out of the pocket and throw the football away. Just don't give up the yardage. Just get rid of the football, and that'll be the end of that. So what's really not going to be as critical is whether or not the Eagles defense is sacking Patrick Mahomes. What is going to be critical is whether or not the defense is applying that pressure, because that's going to happen whether or not Patrick Mahomes throws the ball away. That is automatically getting pressure. So it is important, it's critical for Patrick Mahomes to be not left sitting back in the pocket for hours, for days. He should not be able to sit down and have a 3-course meal back in the pocket. We need the Eagles to get to Patrick Mahomes, get to him early, get to him often, and make sure that we're applying that pressure so that way he knows that he doesn't have the kind of time that he had when he was facing the Bengals, that he had when he was facing other teams over the course of the year, over the course of this playoffs. The Eagles need to make sure that they're getting to him early and often, making sure that their presence is known, because what that's going to do is that's going to force Patrick Mahomes to make some poor decisions in the course of just getting the ball away. Pressure is more important than sacks here with a quarterback as elite as Patrick Mahomes is. So it is really important that the Eagles get past the line of scrimmage, win the battle in the trenches, and get to Patrick Mahomes. Sacks are nice, but at the end of the day, pressure is going to be most important. Key number 2 for this game is going to be not just getting pressure, but it's going to be capitalizing on those poor decisions that Patrick Mahomes is going to make, and that is the interceptions and turnovers and other interceptions, fumbles, turnovers, whatever you want to categorize it as. The Eagles need to be getting takeaways here from the Chiefs. The Eagles should not be. It's going to come down. I think I have this gut feeling that some point during the game, the Eagles are going to need to get at least one, hopefully multiple turnovers, whether it be on Mahomes, on Travis Kelce, on other receivers. It is really going to be important for the Eagles to get these turnovers, because if we just get into a shootout where each team has the ball and each team goes down the field and scores, I have this gut feeling that the Eagles might not have the ball last. And my gut is telling me that the team that has the ball last at the end of this game is going to win the game if we get into that kind of a situation. So it's going to be really important for the Eagles to make sure that the Chiefs do not have the opportunity to march down the field regularly. The Chiefs have that kind of offense to be able to do that. Over the course of the regular season, the Chiefs ranked 19th in the league in terms of first downs per game. That was the defensive statistic. That was first downs allowed per game. The Chiefs were number 1 in the league on offense from first downs per game. They got 24 first downs per game. That is first in the league. That outranks the Eagles. The Eagles were at 22.6 first downs per game on average. That was third in the league. So it goes Kansas City, Buffalo, Philadelphia. Philadelphia, of course, being the best NFC team in that domain, but the fact that the Chiefs have more there means that they have the ability to do that a little bit more effectively. In the playoffs, the Eagles wildly outrank the Chiefs. They are at 25.5 on average first downs per game compared to the Chiefs' 23. So winning in that domain, so realistically at the end of the day, the fact that both teams can go and march down the field and get multiple first downs in a drive and construct a drive and score at the end of the game, my gut is telling me that if we get into that kind of a situation, the team that wins the game is going to be the team that has the ball last, and that's not going to be good for the Eagles because you don't want to leave it up to that kind of a chance. You want the Eagles to be scoring early, and to keep the Chiefs from scoring, ideally through takeaways. We're not anticipating the Chiefs are going to have a lot of 3 and outs. So it's going to be important for that to occur. So that is at the first point, that is the second key to the game, which is getting those turnovers. Key to the game number 3 is going to be third downs. Third downs, and any down after that. Fourth down, certainly. If there's a random fifth down, we want to make sure, given the quality of the officiating in the AFC Championship game, there's a possibility that there could be a fifth down on a drive. Key to the game number 3 is going to be that third down, fourth down, those critical situations. The Eagles have to be winning there. The Eagles fundamentally must be winning in that place. The Eagles have to make sure that they're converting on third downs. The Eagles are certainly one of the best teams on fourth down. Trying to pull that stat for you here. The Eagles have converted all of their fourth downs in the postseason, and in the regular season, the Eagles ranked 4th in the league in terms of fourth down conversions at 68.75%. Kansas City does rank ahead of them in fourth down conversions. They are at 75% of fourth down conversions. On third downs, it's a little bit closer to 50% for both teams. Kansas City is at 48.7% over the course of the regular season. That puts them at number 2 in the league. Philadelphia, of course, remains at 4th in the league there. They're at a little bit shy of 46% of first down conversions on offense. So it is important. The Eagles are a better team when it comes to goal to go. The Eagles rank 5th in the league in goal to go. 82.35% of their drives are converted into points. Kansas City does not do quite as well in goal to go situations. But that having been said, I do want to make sure that having been said, we want to make sure that we are still winning in those sort of key situations, especially third down. The Eagles are not as good of a team on third down as Kansas City is. They're not as good of a team on fourth down as Kansas City is, as you look at the numbers. But they do a wonderful job, at least, of trying to do that. And the dominance on third and fourth downs is going to be important here. I want to circle back just for a moment to touch on, again, the takeaways. That was the second key to the game here. Takeaways are important, but they're also important for the reasons that I laid out. They're also going to be important because Kansas City has never lost a game where they've been equal or ahead in the turnover battle. They simply have not. Their losses have come when they've fallen behind in the turnover battle. And so it's for that reason that the Eagles need to make sure that they're staying on top of that as well. So keys to the game are going to be pressure. That's where we're at first, is pressure on Patrick Mahomes. Second key to the game is turnovers. We want to make sure that we're taking the ball away from the Chiefs. And we want to make sure that we're doing that as often as possible. And third is those critical third down situations. Third down, fourth down, third down, fourth down, goal to go, red zone situations. We want to make sure that when we're in that sort of situational football kind of scenario, that we're doing that, or that we are converting on third, fourth down, that we're converting that into an extended drive or into points. The Eagles have shown tremendous improvement in that domain in situational football, especially when you look at the NFC Championship game. The wild Devontae Smith, was it a catch, wasn't a catch, or was it not a catch situation that was ruled a catch on the field, and it was not challenged because the Eagles, cued by Devontae Smith, were playing that situational football, and they knew, okay, this might not have been a catch. So we're going to rush over. We're going to really get ourselves into a situation where San Francisco is not able to challenge the play. So that is important. That is crucial. That whole situational football. The Eagles have made great strides in that place over the course of this year. They need to keep doing that. They need to keep playing the game. They need to keep advancing in situational football. And they need, especially as we look at third and fourth downs. So that's the first three keys to the game. Fourth key to the game is going to be the run game. Now, Kansas City, under the leadership of Patrick Mahomes, can do the run game, certainly. They can, but they are much more of a passing team, and we know this from Andy Reid. Andy Reid was not all that big on running the football when he was here in Philadelphia. Now, in Kansas City, he's done exceptionally well in that regard, but rushing yards wise, Kansas City really doesn't do a great job, at least throughout the game. Kansas City ranks in rushing yards per game. They're at 115.9 yards per game on average. That's about 20. That ranks 20th in the league through the regular season. Compare that to the Eagles, who have a tremendous three-headed monster. It's not quite the same way. There's definitely a clear number one in terms of who it is, in terms of the running backs on the field. That would be Miles Sanders, Kenny Gainwell, and then Boston Scott. Miles Sanders is the clear number one in terms of the running backs, but all three of them are used very situationally and used very effectively over the course of the situations. Adding in Jalen Hurts to the mix as a runner, and you've got a whole host of a game. You've got many ways in which the Eagles can beat you on their legs. And so because of that, the Eagles have 147.6 rushing yards per game on average. That is fifth in the league through the regular season. So that is incredible. And when you look at the postseason and you look at that same stat, the Eagles average about 208 yards per game in terms of rushing yards. Compare that to Kansas City, which averages 93 yards per game, which is ninth out of the 16 teams that made the playoffs. But the Eagles certainly at the top of that, 208 yards per game. That is first in the league among the playoff teams. I apologize. I'm sorry. They're including the AFC and the NFC in these stats here, so I should ignore them. 14 teams that made the playoffs. The Eagles still rank number one in that. Kansas City ranks number 9 out of the 14 teams that made the playoffs. And then in rushing yards per play, the Eagles are second in the league among the teams that have made the playoffs there in rushing yards per play. Kansas City has not been there. Kansas City ranks at number 6, or Kansas City ranks at number 12 in that domain. So the Eagles are at number 3 in rushing yards per play. In the league, rushing yards per play, they're at 4.73 among postseason teams through the postseason. Compare that to Kansas City, which is at 11 in the league. Among teams that made the postseason, they're at 3.72 on average rushing yards per play. So the run game is going to be really, really important for the Eagles. It's going to be really, really important for the Eagles to establish the run and win the game on the ground. Because at the end of the day, the Kansas City Chiefs are just a better passing team. Kansas City has, through the regular season, ranked number 1 in the league, both in passing yards per game and passing yards per play. At 297.8 on average per game, 7.78 yards per play on average. Again, both of those are number 1 in the league. The Eagles rank number 9 and number 3 in those two stats, respectively. So it is really, really going to be very important for something like that, where the Eagles can just take over and the Eagles will be able to win the game on the ground. That's just mission critical importance. That is key number 4, is the run game, because the run game is going to, we know this, the run game wears down defenses. It is incredibly difficult to stop the run, especially when you have all of the running weapons that the Eagles have. So it's incredibly difficult to stop the run. And then what winds up happening is that opens up the passing game, because the passing game sort of relies on the run game. The run game still has a really strong propensity to set up the pass. And so they make you think run, and then you've got defenders that are open down the field, and it's really difficult to cover, especially when you have a quarterback who is as mobile as Jalen Hurts. So key number 4 to the game is the run game, winning the game on the ground. So I do want to move through and just talk about the last key to the game that I have, which is, I'll talk about that in a second. But again, certainly, please make sure that you're taking the time. If you're watching this, please feel free to like, subscribe to Bird's Nest Media here on here on YouTube. We're at Bird's Nest FB on Twitter. We are at Bird's Nest Media, or Bird's Nest FB on. Or we're at Bird's Nest Media or Eagle's Nest Media. I forget what it is. We're still trying to work that out. Facebook's being a pain. But we're on Facebook under one of those two names. Please feel free to support us, and you can always check us out at birdsnestmedia.com. Love to hang out. And again, feel free to post what you're thinking here. If I'm off base, if I'm missing something, please feel free to share. But again, like, subscribe, because that really helps us out. So the 5th key to the game. So we talked about turnovers from the defensive standpoint, and I really think this is going to be more of a defensive game than an offensive game in terms of who's going to win. Both offenses are going to be exceptional. Both offenses, I'm really anticipating that there will be a really, really good game offensively. It is going to be a shootout. The defense is going to be called upon probably a lot more, kind of like in Super Bowl 52, when it really wasn't a big defensive game in Super Bowl 52, but Super Bowl 52 was known for key defensive plays. The biggest one, of course, was Brandon Graham's strip sack of Tom Brady with just over 2 minutes to go that allowed the Eagles to go down, score a field goal, put them up by 8, forcing Tom Brady to try and march down the field with less than 2 minutes to go, with no timeouts. It was a real challenge, certainly, for them to do that. And, of course, as we know, they lost that game, giving the Eagles their first Super Bowl. So I am anticipating a kind of similar game here. I'm anticipating that there are going to be big defensive moments here, and that's why so many of the early keys were focused on the defense, the pressure, the turnovers. or the turnovers. There are other keys to the game as well that are sort of honorable mentions here in terms of making sure that the Eagles are ahead on making sure that the Chiefs don't have the ability to convert on third down, on fourth down, in the red zone, goal to go. We want to make sure that we're keeping them out of those kinds of out of those latter two situations, certainly. And then on third down and fourth down, we've got to make sure that we are forcing them to get rid of the football. So that's an honorable mention kind of key. But it's not really my last key to the game. My last key to the game is going to be, very honestly, it's going to be the Eagles' ball security. Again, when I talked earlier, the Eagles, or Kansas City has never lost a game where they have been ahead or equal in the turnover battle. They've only lost games when they've been behind in the turnover battle. And that is going to be really important. So the turnovers on the one side, turnovers on the other side. The Eagles have to make sure that they are holding on to the football, that they're not just giving the ball over to Kansas City. The Eagles certainly do a better job in this department than Kansas City does, or than Kansas City has. The Eagles rank 1.68% in the league in terms of the interception rate. That is actually a stat that is better than Kansas City. Kansas City is 8th in the league at 1.84%. So it's not a whole big difference, but it's enough of a difference where the Eagles have the opportunity to make sure that they're not turning the ball over to Kansas City. That they're really not turning the ball over to anybody for that matter. The Eagles, again, they're doing a wonderful job in this department. And then on the defensive side, again, as I alluded to, the Eagles are 6th in the league in the interception rates. They are at 3.06%. So I do think that there is going to be some key moments there for the Eagles, but turning the ball over is not going to end well. I really had this gut feeling, as I was saying earlier, that the Eagles really just have to that the Eagles have to make sure that they're ahead in the turnover game, because if there's no turnovers at all during the game and it's just shootout, march down the field, score a touchdown, and then vice versa on the other team, the last team with the football is going to come out victorious, and I don't think that is going to play out well for the Eagles. I just have this gut feeling. The Eagles have to make sure that they're causing turnovers. Now, again, as we take a look over the course of this, the Eagles, in terms of their takeaways over the course of the regular season, they forced 27 total takeaways. 17 of them have come off of interceptions. 10 of them have come off of fumbles. That is 4th in the league over the course of the regular season. It's actually tied for 4th over the course of the regular season. Dallas has the most. Go Eagles. Dallas sucks. But they have the most takeaways in terms of 30. They had 33 over the course of the season. San Francisco and New England tied for second in terms of the raw total number of takeaways at 30. And then the Eagles are tied for 27th with Jacksonville, Buffalo, and Houston at 27. So that in terms of takeaways. Kansas City is farther down on this list. Kansas City is at 20 total takeaways. Over the course of the regular season, they've had 11 interceptions and 9 fumbles. But we're talking now about the giveaways, and we don't want the Eagles to be giving the football away. The Eagles are tied for 5th in that department, actually. The Eagles are tied for 5th with 19 total giveaways. Of those 19 giveaways, 9 of them have come off of interceptions, 10 of them have come off of fumbles. So it's the fumbling. Certainly we want to make sure that we're not doing interceptions. Only having 9 interceptions as the Eagles over the course of the regular season. Now, that does include the statistics in that department. That does include the statistics from Gardner Minshew. I think when you factor him out, I think Jalen Hurts has only had 6 interceptions on the course of the year. So it is big for the Eagles to have that kind of ball security, because that's not something that we've had that we're used to, certainly. So. And then in terms of the giveaways, Kansas City has given the ball away 23 times over the course of the regular season. They have been intercepted 12 times, and they have fumbled the ball 11 times. So there's a whole thing. I have the differential here as well. The Eagles are 3rd in the league in terms of the differential. They are +8. They've taken the ball away 8 times more than they've given it. Whereas Kansas City is at -3, so they've actually given the ball away 3 more times than they've taken it away from another team. This is going to be this whole defensive area is going to be a really, really big key. The Eagles have to make sure that they're not turning the ball over on their own, and they have to make sure that they are taking the ball away from the Chiefs. Those keys kind of go hand in hand. So that's the biggest element to this. The last sort of, again, I alluded to some honorary mentions keys. I am going to keep this one here as, again, it's an honorary mention key. After last week's game, I'm hopeful in this regard, but I do want to make sure that it's still mentioned, and that is penalties. Penalties are going to be really, really key to keeping the Eagles on the winning side of the football. The Eagles need to make sure that they're playing a clean game, that they're playing a clean game, that they're making sure that they're not making critical mistakes. The biggest mistake that I could see the Eagles making, just fundamentally, because I've seen this happen way too many times over the course of this season, over the course of the regular season and the postseason, is ineligible receiver downfield, or ineligible man downfield, and that would, of course, be when an offensive lineman on passing play gets a little bit too far down the field when the ball is thrown. That is not allowed. The Eagles have had problems in that domain. In particular, the Eagles have had problems in that domain when they have when they've been doing this whole RPO thing. It is a side effect of the RPOs that the offensive lineman might not know until the last minute whether or not Jalen is handing the ball off to a Miles Sanders or a Kenny Gainwell or a Boston Scott, or whether he's keeping the ball himself looking to throw the football, or whether or not he's running. It only becomes a foul if he throws. It only becomes a foul if he throws the football. So if Jalen Hurts is running down the field and he crosses the line of scrimmage and becomes a runner, there's no foul for ineligible receiver downfield. But if Jalen Hurts does not run and he throws the ball and there's an offensive lineman that's too far north of the line of scrimmage, then that's going to get called. And the Eagles have been heavily penalized in that regard, and the Eagles need to make sure that they're not doing that. The referee for the game for the Super Bowl, according to the NFL, it is the NFL goes through and they rank each of the individual officials, and they put together the officiating crew for the Super Bowl from the best officials over the course of the season. The referee for the game is Carl Cheffers. So he was ranked as the best referee. He is going to be He's going to be officiating with not just his regular crew. He's going to be officiating with, again, this sort of all-star crew that the NFL puts together for the Eagles, or for the Eagles Chiefs Super Bowl, and they do that for every Super Bowl. The officials are evaluated, and the officials who are ranked as the best officials go to the Super Bowl. So these are theoretically the best of the best individual officials. So penalties so they're going to be watching. Carl Cheffers has been known to be a little bit more flag heavy than others, but we do want to make it's certainly probably not going to be a Gene Steratore from Super Bowl 52, where the refs just let him play, and that was a great game. The officials knew what the calls were going to be. They knew. They knew what they're called. They knew what they were doing in Super Bowl 52, and certainly we hope that that's going to be the case this time. We don't want any officiating disasters to be a deciding factor of this, but we do know that the Eagles are going to need to make sure that they're doing what they can to keep the flags from hitting them too much. So those are the keys to the game. Again, we had the principal 5 as well as a couple honorary mentions. Again, the keys to the game just principally are going to be pressure on Patrick Mahomes, takeaways by the defense, winning on third downs, the run game, and not giving the football away. We have a couple of honorary mentions, notably penalties. So we have a couple of honorary mentions there. So how do I think this is going to go? Well, I do think that the Eagles get at least one turnover. I think the Eagles have just been too good in that department for the Eagles to not get that. Players like Hassan Reddick have been standout in that regard. Working on pulling up the statistics there now for you here. We look at over the course of the regular season, defensively, we've got guys like Chauncey Gardner-Johnson, who had 6 interceptions, Darius Slay, James Bradbury at 3, Josiah Scott at 2, Josh Sweat, Avonte Maddox, Reed Blankenship are all at 1 interception over the course of the year. And then certainly we can look at the fumbles that have been forced. Hassan Reddick tops that domain. These are over the course of the regular season. Hassan Reddick has forced 5 fumbles. Avonte Maddox at 3. Brandon Graham at 2. Marcus Epps, Javon Hargrave, Josh Sweat, Fletcher Cox, Patrick Johnson are all at 1. And then if we look at the postseason and we look at how they're doing on that or in there, the Eagles have only forced 1 interception defensively. James Bradbury picked off, or James Bradbury was the person who did that. And then we had on the fumbles side, the Eagles have forced 3 fumbles, one at the hand of Reed Blankenship, 1 at the hand of Hassan Reddick, 1 at the hand of Josh Sweat. So that I do think the Eagles have just been a little bit too good in that domain for there to be no fumbles. For there to be no fumbles forced, for there to be no interceptions. I think the Eagles have just been really. I think the Eagles are going to do that, and I think the Eagles just know that the Eagles just kind of do a great job with being able to beat you regardless of where they are. I think Kansas City is going to put up a heck of a fight. I think it's going to be an offensive shootout. Certainly not to the extent that Super Bowl 52 was, but I think it's going to be pretty close to that. And so because of that, I think it is going to be a 33-30 Philadelphia Eagles victory. So mark me down for that. But let me know what you think. Let me know what you think in the comments. Appreciate you taking the time to check us out. Again, feel free to visit us at birdsnestmedia.com. That's where we have most of our content coming out. You can also check us out on Twitter at Birds Nest Facebook, Birds Nest Football. Birds Nest FB would be the handle for that. You can also check us out on Facebook. Eagles Nest Media is where we're at there. Or here on YouTube. We do try to stream pretty regularly, so do try to put videos up pretty regularly. So definitely feel free to do that. And if you enjoy what you're seeing, make sure that you like, subscribe, tell your friends, share us. Looking forward to seeing you, and looking forward to this incredible game that we're anticipating here. An incredible game on Sunday. Again, let me know what you think. Until next time, I'm Joe Donahue. Take care. And let's go, Eagles.